Constant advancements of modern technology are allowing students to become smarter than ever before, while doing so at a faster and cheaper rate. Things like renting books in the library and tedious research have become a thing of the past due to new reliant technologies that have changed education. Today's youth exists in an era in which technology is no longer as intimidating as it once was. Beyond educators being trained to apply technology to their curriculum, there is now even a common expectation from the federal government, the press, and local school boards for students to become skilled in technology. Eric Scheininger, educator and renowned advocate in the areas of educational technology and digital leadership, has said, "It is not our future we're preparing students for, but theirs. We can ill afford to prepare them for a world that won't exist." This statement puts into perspective the profound understanding that without integration of technology in education, students are being treated with injustice by receiving a lack of preparation for the world in which they will enter upon graduation. This is especially true for students with disabilities, as the growing accessibility of assistive and adequate technology has proved our students with infinite opportunities that were not obtainable even just a decade ago. This new emphasis society puts on technology in classrooms arises the question, how does this relate to wealth and privilege? The divided effect technology can have on education has a lot to do with the concept coined by sociologist Robert Merton as the Matthew effect. The Matthew effect is the tendency for early advantages to have a greater effect over time. This concept implies that those who are born with privilege as well as the accommodations that go with it have major advantages that allow them to get ahead later in life over those who are born without it. Early on, the Matthew effect applied to education through reading. Studies show that children who were provided with books and began reading at an early age acquired a broader vocabulary and a better understanding of literary concepts, which over time made reading easier, leading them to read more and excel in the subject later on. Children who did not have the books around when they were young and struggled with reading failed to acquire the same vocabulary and knowledge, and found reading even more difficult as a result, causing them to read less and struggle in the subject. More recently, researchers have begun to document a digital Matthew effect. Similar to books and reading, students exposed to technology during their youth acquire the knowledge and experience necessary to participate efficiently in the modern world. Those who have a school district that does not provide appropriate resources and lack of modernization put their students at a disadvantage. Based on this theory, they will struggle adjusting to the fast-paced, technology-based society. In regard to the topic of wealth and privilege in education, Bobby Herrera's cycle of socialization is extremely relevant. The cycle of socialization analyzes the way in which people are socialized to play certain roles, how they are affected by issues of oppression, and how this oppressive system based upon power is maintained. At its core, the cycle states that people are either born lucky with privilege or unlucky without it. This directly relates to those who are born into impoverished areas and do not have access to great education. Being born into a low-income family and have no option but to attend low-funded school districts limits the potential of students. This, however, is not the fault of these students, because they are forced to live with the circumstances they are born into. Correspondingly, Camara Phyllis Jones's Levels of Racism provides insight on wealth and privilege. Institutionalized racism, one of Jones's levels, describes access to goods, services, and opportunities in society based on race. This relates to the minorities in the United States who lack proper technology in the classroom due to lack of wealth. Working families of colored people are twice as likely to end up in poverty compared to white families. Institutionalized racism is experienced by these families when being oppressed by those who are privileged. From an ethical perspective, the idea of privilege is extremely flawed. Catholic social teaching focuses on improving issues regarding poverty and human rights. It defends the idea that every human should have equal opportunity and that it is the responsibility of everyone in society to actively practice this equality. Of its pillars, concepts such as solidarity and preferential option for the poor tie into poverty's effect on the access of technology. Solidarity notes that despite race, gender, religion, and economic position, all humans are the same and should love each other as equals. In this state of mind, technology should be shared throughout all schools in order to create equality and the opportunity of all those who seek education. Accommodations based off wealth counter any possibility of all humans being the same. Preferential option for the poor only furthers this point, emphasizing that those living in poverty are seen as outcasts of society, making them vulnerable. Catholic social teaching encourages to aid those who have less to live in the ideals of God's visions. This would call for those with the resources and money to give back to unwealthy and help them build their school district to a universal standard. Society is weakened when it is not being used as one system, rather than separate and marginalized. In order to solve the problem relating to wealth and privilege affecting technology in the classroom, the first step is to spread awareness regarding the lack of modernized classrooms in America, as well as the effects the lack of technology can have on today's youth. After that, the only solutions to the issue are either lessening the price needed for classroom technology, or finding a way for low-funded school districts to receive aid from donations. Organizations such as the Technology Donors Program are attempting to do this, allowing teachers to make a wish list of technology that would benefit their curriculum. Donors can then see these lists and assist in any way they can in order to lessen the gap. After this, the school gets 10% of their money back in order to continue to better their classrooms and accommodate for as many students as possible.